Welcome to Daily Scary Tales, where nightmares come to life. Hit subscribe and share the horror with your friends, if they're brave enough. Today's tale takes us deep into the heart of a rural hunting cabin, marooned by a dense forest. The lantern's unseen glow. A tale so sinister it'll make you question where safety truly lies in the dark. Meet Thomas Crowley, a reclusive craftsman who inherited his family's hunting cabin after the passing of his father. Tucked deep within North Carolina's Appalachian Mountains, he used the space for solitude, tinkering, and honing his skill in carving elaborate wooden lanterns, his true passion. These lanterns weren't just mundane light sources. They were intricate, artful masterpieces, emitting an otherworldly glow when lit. One frosty winter, Thomas decided to escape the noise of the town and live in the cabin for a few months. He loaded his truck with a few belongings, plenty of firewood, his carving tools, and, of course, 5 of his most beloved lanterns. He reached late in the evening, the golden glow fading from the horizon into an eerie pitch-black blanket of night. The surrounding forest whispered in the cold wind, carrying the sounds of rustling branches and occasional distant howls. But he wasn't afraid. He embraced solitude. Thomas unpacked and placed the lanterns carefully around the small, rustic space. Each was different. A swan carved into one, intricate vines on another, and his favorite bore the face of a solemn old man, eternally staring into nothingness. Their uniqueness comforted him, pieces of his late father as a reminder of his heritage. As the clock sprinted past midnight, Thomas struck a match and lit the lanterns. They filled the cabin with a golden aura, cutting through the frigid darkness. Soon he dozed off in his rocking chair, lulled by the crackle of the fire and the warm, flickering light. But as the night deepened, something odd happened. One of the lanterns, the one with the solemn face, dimmed. Its glow seemed to pulse, faint yet rhythmic, like the flicker of a heartbeat. Yet Thomas, lost in his dreams, remained unaware. At precisely 2:43 a.m., Thomas awakened abruptly. That strange feeling of being watched crept across his skin like icy fingers. Rubbing his eyes, he noticed the solemn-faced lantern's irregular glow. He got up, adjusted the wick, and rekindled its warmth, brushing off the unease as nothing more than tiredness. As he turned to go back to his chair, a faint whisper, like a breeze sneaking through the cabin, sighed behind him. Thomas froze. Every hair on his body stood on end. He whipped around, but the room appeared unchanged. The lanterns burned evenly again, their ambiguous glow dancing on the walls. He checked the windows. All were locked. Letting out a shaky breath, he convinced himself it was just his imagination. Then, at exactly 3:07 a.m., the same lantern went out completely. No dimming, no warning. Just darkness. This time the whisper became a murmur. Clear, carrying words he could barely discern. Why here? Who are you? Leave. He stepped back, instinct screaming at him to grab his coat and bolt outside. But the rational part of him, the craftsman and skeptic, wouldn't be afraid of an intangible whisper. He gripped the lantern and inspected it closely. A sensation of ice shivered up from the handle, biting into his skin. He nearly dropped it as he noticed something else. The old carved face now looked angrier. Its chiseled lines deepened, almost alive with fury. Suddenly the rest of the lanterns flickered violently. The flames in all but the solemn-faced one grew tall and wild. Shadows leapt along the cabin walls, shifting unnaturally, defying the physics of light. They overlapped in grotesque waves, forming shapes, silhouettes. A figure. The face of the figure eerily mirrored the solemn-faced lantern. The whisper transformed into a deep growl. "You dare bring me here? My prison, my curse." The voice bellowed, shaking the timbers of the cabin. Thomas dropped the lantern, the wood thudding on the floor as the light of all the lanterns extinguished simultaneously. He stood paralyzed in unforgiving darkness. A pair of red, glowing eyes pierced through the void near where the solemn-faced figure had been. "I should have never been carved. Never lit," it roared, pushing Thomas backward. The room spun. Suddenly he wasn't standing in his cabin anymore. The floor beneath him seemed endless, stretching into infinite blackness. He heard the echoes of heavy footfalls, stomping and circling him. Thomas scrambled forward, blindly, his fingers fumbling over splinters of wood. The words kept haunting him. "Why did you carry me here?" The growl seemed to seep inside his mind. That's when it struck him. The lantern must have been his father's last creation, perhaps a mistake, or worse, cursed. But what could he do now? His trembling hand found a flask of oil scattered on the floor, tipped open. Without thinking, he grabbed the solemn lantern and poured the remaining oil over it. He struck a match and lit the wood. Flames consumed it instantly, spreading upward in a violent blaze. The disembodied voice screeched as the room around him seemed to shatter like glass, revealing his cabin once more. Calm, quiet, untouched by flames. Thomas collapsed into his chair, clutching his chest and gasping for air. Morning light trickled weakly through a frost-covered window. All the lanterns were gone. Only ashes remained on the wooden floorboards. From that day forward, Thomas never carved another lantern. He sold the cabin, never to return. But locals say that on dark, moonless nights, you can still see a faint glow over the hill where the cabin stood, accompanied by the faint echo of a murmur. "You dared bring me here."